Okay. Rubbish video quality, rubbish sound, fan noise in the background because it's really hot. I'm sort of nervous and stuttering, at least to begin with. Because this is my very first video, really attempting to let go of all of my insecurities that have held me back until this point. And this is it's my second attempt. I started about 10 minutes ago, and then my soon-to-be one-year-old son woke up and started crying upstairs, so I had to go and get him. And when I got back, I decided to start over. But yeah, I'm not going to apologize for any of that stuff because it's kind of the point. I've been wanting to put stuff out there for quite a long time, and there's always been an excuse in the way to hold me back. And it's been things like I've latched on to things like I don't have a camera and I don't have the money or feel comfortable spending the money on investing in one. There's construction noise outside and motorbikes driving past my house. You might have just heard the horn go off on one of them then. Anyway, I'd use anything as an excuse not to put my ideas out there, and it really stemmed from a deep insecurity in myself. I know that I am competent, and I've had that supported by other people throughout my whole life, and particularly in my work as a teacher, but that hasn't really changed the fact that I feel that insecurity. So anyway, I'm hoping that this process of me just putting it out there in the terrible condition that it's in helps me to get over some of that insecurity. And then maybe I can start talking more freely and openly as I get into it and become more experienced. So that's what I'm trying to do here. Another thing that I've had to do to get myself going, to actually be sitting here right now and attempting to do it, is to reframe what I'm trying to achieve. I think in the past I've wanted to put out something professional that would really help people, but every time I've tried, it's felt kind of forced. And I've realized that in order to connect with anyone, it needs to be completely honest. And that means it needs to come from myself and it needs to be for myself. So this is for me. It's not for anyone who probably isn't watching the video anyway. This is for me. This is about me working out the so-called issues in my life. And I don't know, hoping to get somewhere with it. I'm really not sure yet, but I journal often and I come up with a lot of ideas, and it just feels right that the next step for me is to make it public, even if no one watches the videos, which they probably won't. If you are, I find that quite amazing. Welcome and thanks for listening. And if you resonate with any of it, which I hope you do, because I think a lot of what I intend to talk about is universal, then I'd love to hear from you as well. Anyway, that was a long introduction and you've probably already clicked off the video, but I'll continue as if somebody is potentially watching. So, the title of the journal entry that I'm going to base this first video around is what do I want and what do I need? Which is kind of a question I ask myself often when I'm journaling, as a way of kind of really condensing all my random thoughts and feelings down into something that's somehow a bit more tangible and relevant to myself. So I started with this. I feel the need to slow down and be more present or aware. At times, I feel the treadmills and my son's crying in the background, so this video might need to be cut short. I'm not neglecting him. He's in a very nice playpen surrounded by all his toys, and he's just making quite a bit of noise as he started doing recently. But I will cut the video if he... Anyway, I'll attempt to do it. And sorry for the background noise. So I feel the need to slow down and be more present or aware in my life. At times, I feel the treadmill speeding up as my focus shifts back to what I must do. Chores, future tasks, work ideas, and progress, or lack of, more to the point. Entertaining my son, ironically. Gaining weight. I've just joined a gym, and you might not notice, but I'm very skinny. I lost a lot of weight recently. Making phone calls to family members. I haven't spoken to my mum in a long time, and I feel guilty for that. Flying home to visit my extended family, who haven't yet met my son, who's just staring at me and looking for some attention. Finances and the uncertainty of our future, by which I mean me, my wife and my son, are also often there in the background. Now, it's important to remember, son, that nobody cares about how successful or attractive I am. I am essentially invisible to everyone except myself. And I can verify this by the fact that I don't notice anyone else's hair or how they're sitting or what they're doing. I have absolutely no interest really in other people's problems. And I think that's universal universal. That's not to say that I can't empathize and connect with other people's problems, but generally I am the center of my own universe. And if I extrapolate that out to everyone else out there, that means I am invisible. And I think this is really important for me to remember, because ideally I would like to stop seeing myself entirely. I'd like to stop seeing my story, my problems, and instead pay attention to or live through my direct experiences, trusting in the fact that there's a force out there, which I am perfectly comfortable referring to as God, who's making all the calls. And again, this is just my personal belief, but there are no mistakes in the game. You are exactly, or I am exactly where I am supposed to be right now as a result of every minute thing that's happened prior to this point. And that's something that's really comforting for me to remember. So I need to remind myself to sit, breathe, and leave the mental to-do list or problem list for a moment, to do myself the courtesy of giving myself a break. And I'm going to start using the word you here, but I really mean me. Give yourself a break from the torment that you and you alone are creating. It is brutally unfair to what is ultimately an innocent, vulnerable, childlike soul. Imagine if you were to impose the frequency and intensity of regulation, control, and micromanagement, the deprecation that you subject yourself to onto another. Every minute of every day, you've got chores to do. You need to cook later. I'm not sure you have enough money. Why are you sitting and not working? What if you don't finish your assignment in time? You need to get fit. You need to put on muscle. You need to lose weight. You haven't phoned your mum in ages. When are you going to fit that in? Remember that intensely embarrassing thing that you did 5 years ago? Your hair looks weird. People are noticing you for all the wrong reasons. You need to leave and get moving. You've been sitting here for too long. You've got things to do. Remember, you need to cook later. I don't think you have enough money to feel secure. Your future's uncertain. And round it goes. Only pausing when your victim falls asleep or drowns you out with alcohol, mindless entertainment, weed, sugar, mind-altering prescription medications, whatever your drug of choice happens to be. And as soon as the effects have worn off, we're right back where we started again. No wonder you can't sit still. No wonder why you're clenching your fists or jumping your leg up and down while I speak, or why you're scrolling through the thumbnails beneath this video looking for the next escape route while listening to me. Now, I understand this video is probably just shit. Please let me know if it is. I need some feedback. And don't have the courage, at least not yet, to share it with anyone that knows me. So I'm not going to share this video with anybody. So your feedback would be genuinely valuable. I just put it online and maybe someone will see it and benefit. Honestly, it doesn't really matter to me, as I've previously mentioned. The whole purpose of my doing this is personal catharsis and a desire to change the pattern, I suppose, or work out why I am so relentlessly brutal to myself. Why I can't sit down and enjoy a coffee in this beautiful cafe that I find myself in, because apparently buying ingredients for dinner, or more generally speaking, anything at all relating to the future, which of course doesn't exist, has never been experienced and never will be, is apparently vastly more important than my current state of well-being and enjoyment. So I guess that's where my writing ended. This was a really kind of short entry and I didn't follow it to a conclusion. But I guess if I were to conclude something from what I've just said, is that perhaps one of the first steps is to realize that I am hounding myself in a totally inappropriate and unfair way. And that at my core, beneath all of the conditioning, and my son's just vying a little bit harder for my attention now. This is not distressed crying, this is just give me attention, Daddy. I'd rather you were looking at me than talking to the computer. And you might think I'm harsh for leaving him, but this is part of the education. I want to raise a stable, capable human being with some patience and not someone who just gets what he wants immediately whenever he fancies it. Anyway, that's an aside. The conclusion of what I have just written about, the fact that we hound ourselves constantly and think it's normal, and we would never do that. We certainly wouldn't tolerate it from anyone else, is that we need to realize we're doing it, because only when something is brought into the light, we're made aware that it's actually happening, do we even have the potential to do something about it. You know, so perhaps by me writing this journal entry and creating this video, I'll be slightly more aware of the fact that my thinking mind is playing that game. It's disturbing my peace constantly and relentlessly, as my son is right now. So I give everyone else a break. I give everyone else the courtesy of leaving them be, letting them have their peace, not interrupting them, their focus constantly, and certainly not criticizing them or applying layers and layers of pressure. But I don't treat myself with the same compassion or basic human respect. And my suspicion is that's probably the case for the vast majority of other people as well. And we talk about all these different problems in the world, but we're largely overlooking this kind of hidden fact that we treat ourselves like shit and we think it's normal or even appropriate. Maybe we fear that if we don't do it, if we're not kicking ourselves up the arse all the time, then we won't get things done. We'll be unproductive. And we don't trust that our future self will be capable of dealing with its problems when the time is right, when the time arises for us to address something. Instead, we just have to, or our thinking mind, our thoughts, have to remind us every minute of every day that we got to buy ingredients for dinner. Because somehow we've got to do that to retain a sense of control. And I feel on some level that if I'm not constantly reviewing my mental to-do list, then our lives are going to fall apart. The walls are going to crumble down. We don't trust that when the appropriate time comes, perhaps later in the day for me to go to the supermarket and buy ingredients for dinner, that I'll actually do it, that I'll remember. So instead I have to remind myself, and it keeps coming in and it keeps coming in and it keeps coming in, and it stops you from being able to sit down and actually experience peace. Notice your surroundings. Anyway, I think I need to stop there. I feel pretty good about this, actually. It feels good. I feel a weight off my shoulders. Anyway, I'm just going to turn the video off. Thanks for watching.